The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 190.
Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of courageous women finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Want to learn how you can change your inner beliefs and attitudes? Download a free copy of the ebook by visiting thetaoofselfconfidence.com.
Well, hello friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today I have a phenomenal lady on who is a business and marketing coach, and she's here to share her stories about self-confidence, and I'm just excited to have her on. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Prema. Prema, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit more about yourself to our listeners.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sheena, for having me on this show. I'm really excited to be here, and this topic is one that's so important, and so I'm really excited to share a little bit about my journey. My name is Prema, and I'm a business and marketing coach with over 15 years of experience in marketing and business strategy. I have an MBA, and I've worked in the corporate world. So I started out with a more traditional route, and when I found online marketing and business coaching as something that I could turn into my own business, I really found what I would say is my home professionally. Currently, I help women business owners really understand the value they provide through their services and products, and I help them reach their ideal client by better defining their niche and all the benefits that their clients can experience. And I do that through helping people with messaging, marketing, and mindset. And I think all of these contribute to helping my clients make big breakthroughs in their business. And when I'm not in the business sphere, I really enjoy hiking and traveling and kayaking and running and all these other activities. And it's a great way to connect with other people as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you're wondering if this is me, I kind of lost my voice over the weekend. So the next couple episodes might sound like this, but, voice, gone or not, the show goes on. So, Prema, what's your cultural background?
I was born in the US. My parents were originally from the southern part of India. I grew up learning about the traditions and culture of India while trying to integrate it with the American culture that I grew up in. And I'd like to believe that I've kind of gotten to take the best of both worlds and create something that makes my life better because of it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
The quote that comes to mind is one that I've kind of had throughout my life. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step by Lao Tzu. And it might at first seem like a very odd self-confidence quote, but the reason that this quote has really resonated with me throughout my life is that I'm someone who loves to try new things. And the thing that keeps me going is taking that first step and then taking another step and another after that through the ups and downs and staying open to the experiences and learning opportunities. And I truly believe that most of the things that we undertake in life are journeys. And if you've had the opportunity to have a lot of different life experiences, you realize that the process is usually as fulfilling, or sometimes even more fulfilling than the end goal itself.
I love that quote. And it's true, right? Anything we start does start with a first step. And I think a lot of people forget that. They see a lot of people out there who are, they say experts or they're so good at it, but they all started with that first step, whether it's running, whether it's starting a business, whether it's even just starting a new hobby, everything starts with that first step. So great quote. And, in your own words, how would you define self-confidence?
I believe that self-confidence is finding a way to thrive despite conflicting viewpoints or criticisms from others, and really developing that inner strength that supersedes whatever is going on outside. Because when you take away judgment, then you're really able to try things and make mistakes and learn from them and move on. But if you're in a rigid space where you're not allowed to make any mistake or do something that's different than what others in your group or community may be doing, you can never really try anything new or follow your own journey. So I really believe self-confidence is developing that inner strength and really being forgiving of yourself as you go on your journey.
Great definition. And, I agree with you too. I mean, especially as women, we're so hard on ourselves. We have to really learn to just love ourselves no matter what happens, flaws and all. So thanks for sharing that. And Prema, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
So I think a lot of women here can probably relate to what I'm about to say. But if you come from a traditional culture or a culture of conformity and you don't naturally fit in or have the same values or priorities as a majority of a group, it's possible to really stifle yourself or be stifled and not really develop into that unique individual that you are. And I think for me, there was this dichotomy where on some level, I really was a representation of cultural success by the definition that I grew up with. But there was another part of me that really didn't fit into that mold. And it wasn't until my early 30s that I really understood what it meant to step into my own power and consciously build a community of people around me that were not only supportive of who I was then, but who allowed that space for me to grow and change over time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I think too, as women of Asian culture, we're so programmed to take that step on a cultural route. It's like if you go that route, that's success. When really success is, how you define it, how you want to see it in your way. Like success is your way, how you live your life in your terms. So, what was that aha moment in your life when you realized, you can step out of that and be the person that you are today?
I think for me, it wasn't actually one aha moment so much as a lifelong progression to get where I am today. And partly, I think it was because I was tied to the cultural upbringing and community for a very long time, essentially till after grad school. And I didn't really do anything at those times that would have been at odds with the culture that I grew up in. I chose to study computer science of my own choice, believe it or not, because, a lot of people probably think, okay, if you're Asian, you automatically veer towards math and science. I did my MBA after that, and I also embraced a lot of other things that I grew up with. I've been a lifelong vegetarian, which is very typical of the South Indian culture that my parents had grown up in, at least in their generation. I still cook a lot of the Indian food that I learned. I grew up learning Indian classical music and still celebrate some holidays sometimes. So I got a lot of great things, but the reason that I kind of chose to hold on to them was different from just conforming. A lot of the food aspects were really around being healthy and pursuing fitness goals. So I feel grateful that I learned what I did, but I did it for different reasons than just merely fitting in. I think what really started excluding me from the culture was my sense of adventure. I love climbing mountains and pursuing outdoor adventures. And on another level, being a woman, I didn't really see limits by gender. I never saw anything as off limits to me in the world. And, I read a lot, traveled, hiked, explored, and I never thought that a thing or hobby or idea was off limits to me as far as I was concerned. It didn't even cross my mind. And I think where things got difficult was in my early 20s, I started questioning the culture a lot more. And I think that's when things started to change for me. And I grew up with a dad who really wasn't a traditional part of the culture. I think he wasn't as conservative. And so he opened up this broader world to me. He had traveled extensively around the world, and he was one of the most well-read people I knew. And I think that he never saw any limits to me. So that really broadened my world a lot.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, sometimes our culture does kind of limit us in a way, but and sometimes it can be a great thing. And I think if we learn how to kind of mix the two and live life to our according, it can be a great way to bring out our confidence like you did, right? I mean, my parents were the same. They never pressured me to get married like, every other Asian parent you might see outside. And and it's great, right? Because then I don't feel that pressure as well to find a husband, because I don't have to. It's not that goal. And, because of your realizations, what's been your life like now?
I mean, I love what you just mentioned. I think that I really feel grateful for similarly what you said, is that when your parents don't put those pressures on you, even when you come from that culture, then you can take other aspects of it. And to go back to what I was saying, so, on one side, my dad was kind of introducing me to a larger world culture, and my mom was a little bit more conservative, but I still today take a lot of what she taught about health and well-being and spirituality and some of the other parts of the culture with me. So it's great to have that from, both parents. After discovering my own sense of self-confidence, I think it really has allowed me to do a lot of different things. But throughout my life, I think I had pieces of it. At first, it was really bolstered through academic accomplishments and then professional qualifications. It took me a longer time, I think, to tap into the more feminine qualities of self-confidence, to really trust my intuition, to bring my creative skills into the world. I'd been writing for decades and never told anyone about it. And then in my late 20s, I started publishing my creative writing, so fiction and poetry, and sharing it at writers' conferences. And that was sort of this huge thing for me to kind of be more public about that. And my latest adventure has been my business venture, and it's been incredible. It took a while to really be confident about the visibility, really connecting with people. And then I get to talk with you and all these amazing women. It's been one of the hardest and most rewarding things I've ever done in my life, this business. And, I truly am starting to feel unstoppable because of surrounding myself with so many incredible people. So that energy has really helped.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad that you mentioned about your business and having that visibility, because I think a lot of women, have challenges with being visible out there, especially like in the online space. Because I remember reading an article about how women are too afraid to go out there and, sell themselves because, society says it's not proper. And, there's no like right or wrong way to do that. I mean, if you are confident to go out there and be visible, and if you have a great message, I don't think there's any reason to be afraid of, right? In the end, it's our life. We can choose how we want to live it. And if we're always going to be afraid of what society thinks a woman should do, then, we'll never be able to live life on our own terms. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think it's really important for women to realize that it's okay to go out there and be visible and be yourself and build that brand and just go out there and just kill it. So Prema, to the woman who's listening to your episode, she may be in her own journey of self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
I think what's been most important to me, and I think a lot of people can relate, is to really find that safe space or community. And if you don't already have that, to reach out to one or two close friends or a coach who kind of becomes your confidant in your journey. Because I think that really helps you start opening up to your authentic mission in life. And, we all need that place where we feel safe enough to kind of be vulnerable and bring our ideas out into the world. And as you bolster that, you become more and more self-confident. So I think a judgment-free space. And I think one thing that I found, I think in Asian culture is first of all of us are afraid of being judged. But I think in Asian culture, we're also afraid of bringing judgment to our families and to the people in our lives. And I think this is why so many of us take those tentative, cautious steps, because we're afraid of the consequences, and there are real world consequences. I think that by the time I reached my 30s, that's when I realized that, if I stayed hidden and if I tried to stay within a mold, I was just never going to be able to live out my life purpose, because of the way, that my goals and my purpose may not fit somebody else's mold. But I realized that if I couldn't be myself, then there was no way, nothing was going to change in life. And I was stifling myself. And so I really had to break out of it myself and take responsibility. And I think that's what I'd advise.
Awesome. Well, that's some great advice. And, I like that you mentioned, sometimes, especially Asian women, they're so scared to take that next step because, they're afraid of shaming their family or thinking that, they're embarrassing people. But like you said, if you're always going to live in that box, you'll never be you'll never be happy, right? You'll never be able to do the things that you've always wanted to do. So thanks for sharing that. And Prema, if our listeners wanted to connect with you and get to know a little bit more about you, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Sure, absolutely. I would love for everyone to come visit and join the community over at www.inspiredvisioncoaching.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Prema, you can also head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Prema's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I really just want to thank Prema for taking the time to share her story with us and tips. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sheena. It's been fantastic connecting with you and being on this show. And I can't wait to hear all the other podcasts. I think you're doing such an incredible service for so many of us and bringing this community of people together. So thank you.
Not a problem. It was an honor to have you on. So listeners, be on the lookout for another new episode of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. Visit thetaoofselfconfidence.com for links to everything we chatted about today, as well as killer resources, gifts, and so much more. Subscribe to The Tao of Self-Confidence on iTunes or Stitcher to hear more stories of amazing women finding their inner journey to self-confidence.